There are indie hackers on Twitter.
The programming is just a skill like any other skill. Like
He said that it was a horrible decision to allow such kind of tools to be used by people. Companies are using AI to at some point even lie to people. I'm going to give an example.
I mean, you know that you always have two options. Either you need to first suffer at the beginning and have a like chill life and later, or like not to put that much of the effort and have a rest and then you're gonna have troubles.
I wanted to know about why Python is so popular in the AI world. Have you ever tried Rust?
So I never tried the Rust, and I was thinking about just making something new and switching to something new, but I never tried it.
So hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of our special podcast after a very long absence. We're so happy to be here with our guest Salahuddin. Say hello to our subscribers.
So hello guys, my name is Salahuddin and I'm the engineer and CTO from RealSoft AI. And here I'm in a podcast with this guy, with my friend. And we're going to discuss the topic related to vibe coding today. And you're going to describe it, what exactly you're going to do?
Yeah, there's a new trend called vibe coding in the coding world. What it means is you bend over the entire coding process to AI itself. You're not going to write any code. You're just going to write some commands and you're just going to go tap, tap, tap. And, you're just going to trust AI to do all the hard work for you. That's the idea of vibe coding. And so we're going to talk about what vibe coding is, what is the idea of vibe coding, and how does it benefit us, what kind of advantages and disadvantages it has. So that's our main topic today. So the first question I'm going to give you is, what is vibe coding for you?
So actually, like the trend of vibe coding, I've seen in so many places, but I never I cannot feel just relaying all the tasks related to the software engineering to the AI yet. And there is a strong reason for that. And you know that when you're like seeing the vibe coding on the internet, the most of them, they are the guys who are just merely starting their journey and they're feeling that why do I need to like think about the process of like writing code, like making the syntactically, logically correct code if something else can do it for me, and they're just the tabbing and pressing and doing the things like but not realizing 100% what actually they're doing and still getting the results. And let's just start with the early beginning of the coding, like in the early of the 90s, like where there was a huge blast of the IT product and IT services, and the skill of coding was kind of, let's say, really appreciated because the coders, like, they're not called like right now there are that the coders and the programmers, engineers are distinct things, because the coding is all about like translating the human instruction to the machine, right? And that task in that time was one of the complicated things. Like you need to keep up the so many, like, let's say, the technical stuff, starting from the writing the syntactically correct code and ending up with a correct logic, like logically formulated instructions. And in the beginning of the era, it was really hard, but after, let's say, the 10-15 years, there was a notion of the intelligence when you're just there are the helpers, like when you're writing code in like line by line, there is a things like the prompts, names of the functions and methods, and like coding became like less difficult. And the high level programming languages, we're introducing the more familiarity with a common language, like the keywords which sounds familiar. You don't have to like how your like programming became like different when you're gonna go to from the, let's say, assembly, the backgrounds to the C, and the slightly moving to the Python or the languages which are becoming more and more like the human readable. And you know that let's start with another thing. So the web coding, like, just is, I perceive what is it like, and for others, let's say that for you, what do you really think about it? Like,
So what I think about vibe coding is that people think that they can just use some crappy AI tool to generate some code, and they think they're programmers. Yeah, you said correct about the history of programming. For example, imagine we're back in the history of like 70s or 80s, where there's assembly or COBOL or that kind of things.
yeah.
It's really hard to learn those things. But when C came out, for example, the number of people who can write code increased significantly, because C made much things easier compared to assembly. So what is happening with AI right now is the same thing. AI enables people that do not have enough knowledge of coding so that they can just use some AI tool to generate some code, but it does not mean that they are programmers. It does not mean that they are doing actual coding. It just enables them to do what C enabled people to do. C helped people who could not learn assembly to write code. And AI is helping those who cannot learn programming to build some projects. That's what I think about coding. You cannot trust AI like every stuff of your project. That's what I think of vibe coding is.
You know what? So I always really like the giving the alternatives and with the real world, because there are the people who are not technical, they're not like in depth of the technologies and that kind of the words. And let's pick up the cuisine, like the cooking, right? And everyone can cook, and you can just pick up some recipe and follow some sort of, let's say, hard instructions. And sometimes you can follow those instructions and go step by step without realizing what actually you're doing. And at the end of it, like, you can get still that food which you were like trying to cook it, but it doesn't make you like a chef, you know. And that's the same thing. Like, it just enables the ordinary people to make let's say the application, the IT product, but it doesn't make them chef. Like, if you know how to cook, it doesn't mean like you're a chef, right?
Yeah, there are 3 steps in coding, for example. First, you make it work, then you make it right, then you make it fast. Let's say you're solving a problem. You have a problem. First, you write some code that makes sure that it works. The code just works. Doesn't matter if it's fast or efficient or the right way. You just make it work. You can do it with AI. You can just write some commands to AI to generate you some code. For example, when I start a new project, I give instructions to the AI so that I can have some starting point, so that I don't have to do them all myself. For example, when I'm starting a new project, I know what dependencies, what libraries, what frameworks I'm going to be using, and what kind of file structure I'm going to have in. So I give AI instructions to generate me a starting point. Once I have the starting point, I can just continue myself. So first, you can use AI to make some stuff to make it work. But in order to make it right and to make it fast, you cannot use AI for that. AI is not just smart enough to do that, I believe.
Yeah, you know that large language models, like after the 2020, it was a like rise of the large language models and generation of the programming related, the code, the programming related to the text, let's say. And it was really awesome because before it, you need to still go through the already solved the problems in Stack Overflow. Someone already did it, and you don't have to like spend an immense of time for just doing that thing which already been done. Or like when you're like starting up some, let's say, the new project, there was so much of the code which you need to write it by yourself, and you're just going to the documentation, looking for the right scripts and just copying and preparing it. I mean, no one holds in their heads all of the, let's say, the libraries and the frameworks, all the utility, the things, because firstly, you cannot just learn everything of the tools which you're using, and you don't have to do it. Like there is a little chance that you're going to use all of them is kind of, let's say, hard to believe. And you know that there is a trend of using the different kind of mixed technologies. And like if you're gonna make the comparison with 2007 or something like that, the most of the companies, they were using the similar technologies. But right now in this world, there is so much of the diversity. There is so much of the options which you can use it, and like learning and having in your heads all of these tools, all of the frameworks and languages is kind of impossible. And the AI helps you to make it a smooth transition from one language to another language, from one framework to another framework, so that you're not going to be constrained within the scope of the one, let's say, the ecosystem of the company, right? You can just, even within the company, there are the teams which are using the different stack technologies, and AI helps to do it to surpass that let's say that barrier.
Yes, exactly.
Because that like writing a code is one thing, but having the concepts is another thing. Like there are so many similar concepts among all of the, let's say, if we're gonna pick up, let's say, the backend, like the frameworks, all of them have a similar like concepts, but you don't know how to formulate those concepts and those things like in that specific syntax. It's just the matter of the syntax, and it really like actually helps you like make it you're more efficient. You're not like worrying about that kind of, let's say, low level things, and just making paying more attention to the business logic and high level stuff.
Yeah, that's correct. But I'm going to say one thing. Understanding high level complexity is important, but I believe you should not be careless about low level stuff too, because once you make it work and once you make it right, you need to make it fast. Let's say you're building a product, you just build a simple version of it. It just works, and then you get some feedback from your users, your stakeholders, whatever. Then you just collect feedback and you make it right. But once you go into the step of making it fast, you need that knowledge of low-level stuff. For example, we have a CTO here. He works with us. There are situations where we just give up. We read documentations and we say, hey, it's impossible to do it. But he always has that low-level knowledge, and that's why he's able to find some little tiny stuff from documentations that no one else can find. And that's why he's getting paid a lot, more than any of us, for example. And I believe once you need to make something better, make something faster, you need that low-level knowledge. And AI is preventing people from learning these kind of low-level stuff. I'm going to give you a silly example. There are AI-based text editors like Cursor, Windsurf, or Copilot, or whatever. People just can click some buttons and just make it work, for example. People are even using AI or some crappy extensions to run their code. If you ask them, do you know how this code compiles to machine code? They cannot answer. But they can just use those AI tools, or they know how to press those buttons, but they don't know what the process behind that thing is. They don't know what is going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
In every field, like not only in engineering, not only in programming,
Yes.
when you are doing something without the understanding what actually you're doing is dangerous.
Yes.
Because it's gonna lead to the point when you're gonna be in a complete mess. You're gonna be in the middle of the nowhere. Like, no matter who you are, you need to understand what actually you're doing. I mean, there are the things, the meticulous stuff. You're occasionally encountering with specific configuration of the specific stuff, and you don't know about it, and it's okay. But not realizing what actually like you're doing and following those kind of instructions blindly is gonna lead you to the, let's say, the death valley. And that's one of the another conceptions, let's say, the misconceptions about engineering and programming, that the people think that writing code is the important substantial, let's say, the part of the making the product, but actually like it's a really small part of it, like
yes,
it's 5-10% of it.
Yes.
And there are so many things behind it. Like, you're not gonna go straight to the writing code. first you need to like building the requirements, making the system design, and making the architecture, and deciding like with other, let's say, the teammates and colleagues, and accepting those the architectural decisions which are hard to change once they have been decided, and then you're gonna go to the coding part.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the engineering is not all about the coding, the programming is not all about the coding. There are so many other things which are not invisible for the regular people.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, like, do you use any AI tools? Like, for what reasons?
So I mostly use AI tools. Firstly, if I'm new with some technology which I never used before, I need to first familiarize myself with how to work with that, and to get for getting started. It's a really cool thing. And there are things, for example, it's not a complicated task. It's really easy to do it, and there is no much of the effort which you can put it. But you need to type it, you need to write it, and that kind of tasks I can delegate to the AI.
Boring tasks. You mean.
Yeah, they're boring tasks.
Yeah.
I mean, they are simple, but still they're taking too much of the time.
You know how to do them, so you don't want to waste your time doing them.
Yeah. I don't want to waste my time, because
Yeah.
when you're repeating the same stuff for over and over, you're not kind of, let's say, curious about how you're gonna do it.
Do you use any AI editors like Cursor or Copilot?
So I don't usually use a Copilot, because when I used to program in a C++, it used to give me so many, let's say, the millennials the code, which gonna be end up with problems in a runtime.
Yes.
Even though it can compile it perfectly, but in a runtime you're gonna deal with the problems. And that time I just stopped using the Copilots, and if I need something, I can just use any LLMs and ask for specific, let's say, question, and get specific part of the code and put it by myself. But I'm kind of, let's say, just turn it off, and for a year I've tried it, I don't like it. I'm just doing it in the classic way.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that I don't use much AI tools. There are two tools that I'm using currently. One is ChatGPT, and the other one is it's called, I believe, V0 by Vercel. ChatGPT is just understandable, just for daily, tasks, that's boring tasks, those you meant. And I use V0. It is an awesome AI tool that helps you to get some UI working. Let's say you need some kind of UI, but if you do it piece by piece, it's going to take a lot of time. You can build those UIs, but it's going to take you a lot of time. It's so boring. Or let's say you visit some website and you really love the design of it. You just want to copycat it, for example. And V0 is a tool that helps you to build those kind of things. You just give it commands, and it's going to give you some code, and you just copy paste it to your project, and it's going to build those UIs really fast for you. I remember building a mobile app. I had so many pages on Figma, and it was really boring to build those things one by one. So I would just take a screenshot and I would give it to AI, and it would generate 90% of code for me. And I would just be done with the page in 10 minutes, for example. I do use AI tools just for boring tasks, repetitive tasks, so that I can use my time more to handle more complex problems. Yeah. So there is a quote from CEO of Anthropic. He says that in 6 months, 90% of the code will be written by AI. What do you think about that?
So it's kind of actually true.
Yes.
That the people are just they wanted to spend the things for just the regular writing the code. It's kind of that you don't want to do when you're gonna start, let's say you're opening a new page and starting with the import stuff, you don't want to write type it manually. And the firstly, we used to have some sort of, let's say, the boilerplates, the templates, which are already gonna give you the pre-generated, let's say, the pages of your, let's say, if your structure of your project. But right now, that kind of the pre-generated code is becoming too much, and you don't want to type it in your spend your effort for the regular things, and it's kind of true. Yeah, the most of the code which is being like written is gonna be is being like generated by the LLMs.
Yeah, there's a hidden truth in it. So there is a tool called Lovable. Have you heard of it?
No.
Lovable. Lovable is a AI tool that allows you to generate code, but what it allows you to do is it manages repositories on GitHub. So you don't have to go to GitHub and create repositories or create some branches and all that stuff. It's gonna do everything for you. So they had an outage last year. They had an outage and GitHub blocked them. What happened is they had like 20 to 30,000 repositories created per day. In one day, 30,000 projects just created. So what I mean by that is the idea that 90% of the code will be written by AI means it does not mean that AI is going to replace programmers. It just means that AI is helping other people to just give it a try. Like if you're not a programmer, you can use some AI tool to write code. So that is allowing the bubble to shrink in size. Like if this was a bubble before AI, number of programmers were like, I don't know, like 50 million or something. For example, I'm just randomly number. But when AI came out, there are 8 billion people on Earth right now, if not 9 billion. So they can just go and give it a try, even if they're not coders. So that's what allowing the code to shrink in size. 90% of the code, it does not mean the code in companies or the code in some real project. It means, some people they don't know coding, they can give it a try. The same way C helped those who don't know assembly write code. When C came out, the amount of code that compiles the assembly just bubbled up. Because if you don't know assembly, you can just give C a try. That's what's happening with AI, I believe. If you don't know coding, you can just give some AI tool a try and you're good to go with it. That's why I think the number of code is increasing and the number of code is being generated by AI is increasing. So that's why I think there's a hidden truth in it. So that's why I believe that what he's saying might be true.
Yeah, that's the programming is just a skill like any other skill. Like if you are just curious about like the math, you can go for it and you can solve the problems. If you really love the playing at tennis, you can try for it. And the same thing is if it's a programming. If you want to kind of, let's say, I think that the microphone is working. Anyways, so it feels like that's when you have a curiosity, you wanted to do some, let's say, the mobile application by yourself or create a video game, you can try for it. Like it was unachievable for the other, like regular people before, but right now it's just some sort of regular skill which you can do it.
There are indie hackers on Twitter. I think they are like, if not the number one, like number 2 or 3 reason why people are so hyped about AI. And what they do is they just use some AI to build some things. They make it work. For example, I saw a guy, he wrote a program using like jQuery or something. jQuery is like an old framework, if you know about it. What he's saying is it doesn't matter what kind of framework you use or what kind of library you use. Your program just needs to work. So people are using AI to just make everything work, but they don't care about like performance or efficiency or like user experience or things like that. Figma recently announced a low-code editor that helps you to build really complex UIs faster. But there's a guy called Kevin Powell. He's a really good CSS programmer. He's so good at engineering and he's so good at UI UX stuff. He analyzed the tool that Figma announced and he said that it was a horrible decision to allow such kind of tools to be used by people because accessibility and UI UX is just they don't follow the principles of better user experience or user interfaces. So I think people are underestimating the value of domain expertise. Yes, you can use AI tools to generate some starting point. Like if you have a business, you can use AI to build some kind of starting point for your project so that you can get your product shipped to your users faster and to get feedback. But once you get to the growing point, once you have enough users and once you need to scale, I think using AI is a stupid idea.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're just entering the, let's say, the programming engineering job, you're gonna be asked about your skills, which are not related to the coding that much. The system design related stuff, architectural, the part of the job which if you're, let's say, the server-side developer, you need to know all of these concepts, and they are just the concepts, and you cannot just there seem to be some kind of, let's say, theoretical stuff, or in a, let's say, you can describe in words how this thing should be like done, how should be the process should be followed, but and the coding part is let's say, it's a small part of it's like tiny fraction, and the people, it's okay for the people like to make a small tiny projects with AI, but it's like for sure it's not for the business. It's for the, like, let's say, the enterprise, the level.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like if you know how to drive a car, it doesn't make you a professional driver.
Yes, exactly. That doesn't mean that you know every step of the car. Like I have an uncle, he drives a car like every other people, but he knows all the stuff inside the car. He understands it. When his car is broken, he doesn't go to some car service because he knows what is inside. So he just goes in his garage and grabs his things up, and he's gonna fix all it by himself because he knows the stuff behind it. He knows those low-level stuff. I think that domain knowledge is important.
Yeah, being expertise is important.
Yeah. So another topic I wanted to discuss with you is there are numerous AI tools coming up in the last few months, like Anthropic or Amazon, Twitter, OpenAI, and DeepSeek, and all other stuff. So what do you think? Having all those lots of tools, is it beneficial for us, or should we just have one single tool?
So having like the multiple of them, like at the
Yes.
same time.
Yes.
And I think that in some point it's gonna be, yeah, that's true. It depends on your task that you're doing. For example, for coding, you can use one tool, and for the, let's say, the solving some sort of, let's say, the math problems, another thing. And it depends on what kind of field you are. And they are not the same. Like those large language models, they are like working and like they're showing the results in like totally different ways. But you can still manage somehow like to use one of them, and it's perfectly okay, because mainly I use like OpenAI, and the premium version is okay for me. Like I don't need a Claudia or Gemini or any others. Even though there are my friends who are using the multiple of them, but for me just too much, and I don't need it. I mean, it kind of, so let's say, the personal choice.
Yeah. What I mean by that is companies are using AI to at some point even lie to people. I'm going to give an example. There is a AI tool called Builder.io. Builder.io, they help you to build projects like any other tool. But they had raised a lot of money from companies like Microsoft and Google. But what happened is they were lying. The code that is being generated is not by AI. It was a bunch of Indian hackers. They were just sitting behind the scenes and just reading those instructions from people, and they were just lying. It's not AI doing all the stuff, but even companies like Google and Microsoft are trusting in them. So you cannot blame them for trusting, because they see it's kind of trending, it's kind of popular, but once you get to those little things, you're just going to expose them. So Builder.io had taken billions of dollars from Microsoft. But have you read the news about it? Builder.io? Yeah. It is horrible. It is disaster. So at some point, I think I don't love it. I don't like it. I don't like having like multiple tools for doing like. When you have multiple tools, you switch between them. You go to one tool and then the next one, the next one, the next one. You just hop around between them. But the biggest benefit that I believe they give is competition. Like, remember when OpenAI first came out, they had the option to put whatever price they want.
Yeah.
Because they were the only ones. But once there is DeepSeek and there is Quick and there's other kind of tools, they have to lower down their prices. They have to think about their users more and more because there's competition. And if they don't care about their users, they're going to lose them. That's why I think if you give those tools like a year or two, you're going to realize that there are some really good ones that stand out and there are some ones that don't, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely good for the competition. They're
Yes.
constantly working on their models for making
Yes.
them better. And
Yes, yes.
even though they're already performing really good, but they're still trying to make it better
Yes, yes.
to compete
For
with the
example,
market.
OpenAI had to lower down their prices to compete with DeepSeek, for example. But DeepSeek is down, actually, I believe. I tried to use it like the last day, but it wasn't working. Have you ever used it?
So DeepSeek, I used like in the beginning of it when there was a news, and
Yes,
I've
yes.
tried it, and it was that kind of, let's say, the kind of exciting. I mean, the part which was kind of, let's say, makes that kind of this incredible story that they're like they have used set kind of a little budget for building that kind of a large language model, and that was a surprising point, because the OpenAI and other companies, they're asking for the millions of dollars or the billions, and the DeepSeek did it without the restricted budget. That kind of, let's say, the thing which can compete with them.
Yes,
That was
exactly.
surprising.
Yeah. So, my next question is, imagine that you are a father who's an engineer
Okay.
and you had a child who's like, I don't know, 15-year-old kid, graduated high school, and he needs to get a job. And he decides to learn coding like you.
Mm-hmm.
And he asks you, Dad, what should I learn? Would you recommend him to use AI tools?
So for the beginning of it, let's say, you know that there is always hard parts, and you shouldn't skip the hard parts. And you know that in schools, like in a primary school, they've been teaching you how to write the sentences and how to formulate your ideas properly. But it feels really challenging for your brain, and it's for really intimidating for the kids to use already like existing the LLMs for generating the text. But what's gonna be the, let's say, the destination of it, like what's gonna end up like after 10 years or 7 years, if they're gonna skip that difficult part. Like in any skill, there is a beginning part when you're just immersing yourself to new skill, let's say the new language or something new, and you're formulating, like you're making your first neuron connections. And if you're gonna skip that hard part, you're not gonna be able to make it at the
Yes.
further, because and it's always the hard part should go first. I mean, you know that you always have two options. Either you need to first suffer at the beginning and have a like chill life and later, or like not to put that much of the effort and have a rest, and then you're gonna have troubles. And that's why, like in the beginning of it, just understanding the concepts and giving a try by yourself to do something is really important.
Yeah.
And then you can try ask for the help.
Yeah, I love giving the example of microwave ovens. They help you to heat your food for like 5 minutes or something. After 5 minutes, the heat just goes out the window. But if you boil it on the fire, if you heat it on the fire, the food is gonna be like hot for a lot of time. I think that's the same with any stuff, any skill, like engineering, math, business, or medical stuff. Doesn't matter. If you skip those hard times, those hard parts, you're gonna be in trouble in the future. So what I wanted to ask you, like the next is, what is the future of AI for you?
The future AI for me, and the AI is obviously going to be like integrated with every possible system, every possible machine. It's a for sure. And how we're going to interact with that, there is notion of that the UI is in the future we're not going to have a UI. We're going to have like the agents, the chatbots, which are going to like which are going to make the, let's say, connections with the necessary API and work with that. But I'm not sure like when they're going to get days are going to come. I mean, the AI is going to be in everywhere, and not just only in a software as a form, but in a physical form as a, let's say, special kind of, let's say, the robots, drones, and integrated within your, let's say, the devices in your home, and working with them in a like wise the voice control and that kind of, let's say, the more realistic, let's say, ways of interacting with them is going to be, let's say, the possible, like less expensive and more reachable to the ordinary people.
Yes, exactly. But don't you think that's a problem? Because once you don't have any UIs, once you have like AI chatbots everywhere, like people are already getting used to using chatbots. For example, there's a term called pair programming in coding. Pair programming is like two programmers sitting one next to another, and they're trying to solve one problem. There are a lot of benefits to it. Like one is they know what the other one is doing. Like if I get sick, you can replace me, for example. And if you get sick, I can replace you, for example. But when every developer is using chatbot to just kind of get some new ideas, not from human, but some from AI chatbots. So we lose communication. The same way, the phones, the social media has attracted us to the phone or to the computers. I think the same way AI chatbots or AI agents or whatever, they're going to cause troubles of losing our communication. What do you think about that?
The losing communication, yeah, definitely. Like the parts of it is gonna be true, what you're saying. And another thing, like regarding the future of the AI, that every model has its own restrictions. Like there is a term called the bias error rate, and it's a line when the models, like they can improve their performance up to the certain points, and after they're gonna be any better. And it feels like sometimes that the existing models are reaching their limits, like the bias error rate. And I mean, there is always like restriction to in some, let's say, at least in a theoretical way of that, the bias error rate, where the models cannot be better and like after a certain point of time. But let's see, like its future is really unpredictable, and we are living in a closed system where the chaos is everywhere. Like you don't know like what's gonna be, what kind of, let's say, prediction which you're making for the future.
I don't really have any predictions because I don't really follow AI tools that much. I don't read any news about them. I just use them for my daily tasks, but I just choose to not care about them because I want to give them some time to develop, to compete with each other, as I said. And I do not want to spend my time thinking about AI tools, because when you think about something, it becomes a habit. For example, like you start thinking about one thing and you think about it again and again and again, and I don't want to spend my time on it because I know AI can benefit me in some way, but if someone were to take AI from me, I can do it myself, for example. So I don't really have any like predictions or thoughts about AI because I just choose to not care about it. So I wanted to know about why Python is so popular in AI world.
I mean, like firstly, it's the really simple language. I mean, human readable. Another thing is gonna be support. The huge support from the libraries, from technologies like of the like specific to the Python. Like for, let's say, the machine learning, for data science, that people used to have the option of the R language, but
R.
it's kind of, let's say, kind of old, and there's so much things which you can do with with Python, and you don't have to care about like writing this and the getting used to the complex syntax or like what you're doing in a C++, for example. You're just focusing purely on the machine learning stuff.
So what do you do in C++?
So I used to write let's say the pipelines for the real-time video inferencing. You know that I work primarily with the computer vision, and when you're just analyzing some real-time video and giving the real-time outputs of it. For example, let's say the people in the room, or let's say just an example, right? An office when there are the people in the room and they are doing something, right? And we have the cameras, the videos are going through, and when you're analyzing, we wanted to know what's going on in the room, or let's say this is a bank, when you wanted to know the efficiency of your workers, or analyzing the queue, where in the peak hours, what's going on. And for that kind of things, I usually use the library called the GStreamer, and the more specific to be like DeepStream. It's built upon of the GStreamer, and where each frame of the video is gonna go through the AI pipelines. For example, for the person detection, for the multi-tracking, and for that kind of things. But right now, for the last years, I've been primarily working as just a server-side developer, the software architect, and stuff like that. And like integrating the AIs as a single product, because AI models just gonna produce you some values, some strange stuff, and you need to have somehow to put it up to the whole system, to the whole platform, and make it a complete product with that. Because like you cannot just use the models by purely, you need to put it up to the product and make it something complete.
I mean, why I'm skeptical about Python is I do not personally like dynamic languages like Python or JavaScript. I like static languages like C, C++, or even Rust, for example. I really love having like type system in every kind of project. But at least Python has some type hints which are useful in development. For example, I used to write in JavaScript. If you write in JavaScript, there are no type hints, no static types. Like if you have a function and receive some parameters, you don't know what that is. Is it a number or is it a string? How important that is when it comes to writing some AI tools in Python.
I mean, I like in a Python there is this huge support of the annotations, the type annotations, which is gonna make like give you experience like using the TypeScript or something like that. When you know what the parameters of the function is going to be accepted, what's going to be returned, what all the things which are going on. I mean, it's not a concern anymore with the latest versions of Python, because the type annotations solved all of the problems. But you need to follow the listed rules. Like when you're like writing some classes, methods there, you need to like provide some sort of clear documentation to it, to your parameters, the return types, and then you're gonna have some, let's say, more clear and more predictable the code.
Yeah, the reason I love having type system in your project is I believe it gives you a guarantee that your code at some level works. Like type system ensures that you have some kind of checks, some kind of tests in type level, so every function is receiving the right type, for example. So that's why I cannot imagine like having to write some code in a language that does not support types, or even that doesn't even have type hints, for example. I like Python. I prefer Python over JavaScript because Python has type hints, and that's it. Not for anything at all. I love type hints in Python. They help me a lot. So, have you ever tried Rust?
So I never tried the Rust, and I was thinking about just making something new and switching to something new, but I never tried it.
The reason I'm saying Rust is A lot of the cool stuff in the Python world or in the JavaScript world is being rewritten in Rust, for example. So I was thinking maybe there are some AI libraries being rewritten in Rust, for example. I believe there's an package or some formatter called rough in Python.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know about it?
Yeah,
Rough?
yeah.
Yeah, it was at first, I believe, written in Python, if I'm not mistaken, and then they rewrote it in Rust, for example. And there are a lot of other tools, a lot of bundlers in JavaScript world that are being rewritten in Rust, for example. And I believe the same thing might happen with the Python world, because like I don't know much about the AI, but I believe like having some language that is typed strictly, and Rust even has some memory related rules. I believe that kind of language could benefit the AI world. What do you think?
So it's actually when you're like doing something machine learning related stuff, like you're not gonna write that much of the code. When you're training the models, when you're fine tuning it, the writing code is not you're writing like really less. And when you're gonna get that kind of, let's say, when your model is gonna be ready, you're putting up it to some system, and wherein you can use the stuff like the Rust or the Python or whatever you're gonna choose. But right now the ecosystem for the machine learning is, let's say, so friendly in a Python. So many things which already been done.
So I wanted to know, just based on what you're saying, what is the difference between building some product versus building some machine learning stuff? Like when you're building a project and you're an architect, there are a lot of things that you need to worry about, like boundaries and what libraries you're going to be using and how you're going to depend on them, for example. And there are things like clean code or something like that, or design principles. Like, do you use them in your day-to-day work?
So when you wanted to know about how the things which are usually done in the machine learning, and when in most of the cases you're gonna look for the already implemented solutions. Let's say the YOLO from the Ultralytics, a South Korean company, which provides the models for the object detection, for segmentation, and you are training it for your specific, let's say, the business requirements, or you're like training it, fine-tuning it, and like customizing for your needs. You're training the model, like I just said. And when you're gonna have like already trained like model, then you can use it in your system. But we don't usually like build the machine learning models from scratch, because it's really time consuming and a really heavy task. I mean, the people, for example, if you wanna, let's say, for face recognition, you're gonna go for the retina phase, the inside phase, and there are the huge companies like the communities which are supporting that kind of, let's say, the low level stuff related to the machine learning, and you're just customizing it for your needs. Because like if you're gonna do it, you don't have enough the people resources for that. And
what happens when you like decide that one tool, the tool that you've been using, is not enough for you? You need to go for another, but your program is using some imports from that library all over the project. Like you have to replace all the places that you have been using those imports with some definitions from the library itself. Like, how do you do that stuff? Let's say you're using some kind of package, then you realize that it sucks, or it doesn't give you enough opportunities or customization, so you go for another library. How do you do the process? That's so interesting to me. In Python, for example, in dynamic languages, when you're refactoring or when you're changing system things globally, it just sucks, because there are no like checks. For example, if I'm replacing a framework in a project, for example, I need to know where to replace, what things to replace. I need to know where I use those things, where I use some things from that framework I want to replace. Like, how do you do those things?
so usually, you know that let's say in a let's say server-side development, that kind of, let's say, things, they don't usually happen because the tools are already been using for many years and they are like well tested. You're not gonna go for some, let's say, the tool or for some package which is unknown or you don't know, you never used it before. No, it doesn't happen like this, because there are the things which are well established, and the other developers, all of them like knew that's the good thing to stick with, and they're using. And just in case they're gonna happen with you, within your projects, like you don't have other options. Just go and through like the fix and like get it off from the every possible place. But if you're gonna have some kind of experimental services, let's say the features, you need to like put it up as a separate service so that it's not gonna like affect your whole system.
That's what I was talking about.
So making it a separate service and like isolating or putting up a sidecar.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. So the last question I'm going to give you is, if I wanted to change my career to machine learning or some AI related stuff, what should I do? Like, I know I'm a full stack dev and I do mostly front end, back end in TypeScript, React, or some Vue, and I use Node.js or Rust on the back end. And if I were to switch my career to machine learning, what is my starting point?
So your starting point, you need to realize one thing, is that in a machine learning, you're not going to be the same environment as you like doing in the full stack stuff, because you're not writing much of the code, and what you're doing is the purely related to the statistics. For example, you need to start with statistics actually. Like, you know that there is a statistics for the data science. Like you're starting for something like statistics, data science, understanding what's standard deviation, what's a mean, the really simple things, and then you're like go through like with a simple, let's say the first approach is like linear regression models, the KNN. I mean, your journey is gonna be more, let's say, the math related, statistics related, and then for sure you need to learn those, let's say, the well-known the tools like NumPy, the Pandas, and then you're gonna be introduced with let's say the machine learning pipelines with the models which have like many layers. But for the beginning is starting with statistics and understanding the data science.
So do I need to learn maths? I suck at maths.
No, I mean the math, and what kind of like math. You're not actually solving the problems, but you're learning more about the concepts. For example, in a linear regression, you know that there is the linear, let's say, the equations, and what is actually the equations does. Like that you have a y parameter and you have like the x plus some parameter beta x1, right? And
I hate this stuff.
You know that. For example, let's say pick up something more simple, the standard deviation. In your data sets, and how the things which are, let's say, far from each other, they are being expressed by the standard deviation. I mean, you're not like focusing on solving it, like making the hard math, but you're just learning about the concepts, like what is it, like standard deviation, and where we're gonna use it, and what's the real life applications for it. I mean, when you're just learning the math for this, like the machine learning, it's not like the math which you're done in a school, because you're not solving the problems. You're just understanding what actually like each component of that specific stuff is about. What I need to do, I need like to use the hypothesis testing, for example. What's a p-value? What's the zone of rejection? And you know that most of the things are related to understanding the concept of it, not just the purely solving. Because if you're gonna do just look for the solving of it, you're gonna be able to solve the mathematical problems, but you're not gonna understand what's the answer, like how you're gonna use your answer. And that's why, like, for the beginning of the journey, you need to start out with statistics, the beginning of it. And the statistics is gonna be like, if you're gonna know statistics well, the like transition to the data science, to the machine learning related fields is gonna be so easier.
So do they teach those things at school? Those things you talked about?
No, actually not. Like, and if you're gonna like look up like for some book and open and try to understand the concepts, it's not gonna be like really hard, because it looks hard, like all the mathematical intuitions, but once you're gonna get up the points, what actually every item is, it's not gonna be a problem for you.
Mm-hmm. So, have you read any books about it?
Yeah, I have written like many books, but I don't remember the exact names of it. And there was one really good book called Inferential Statistics.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, you know that there is the publishing home called Orieli, and they're providing the really, let's say, the good books with the authors with a good experience, and they're really brilliant explaining the things.
In Tashkent, you mean?
I mean, like the American, the publishing home, the Orieli called.
Yeah, do they have a branch in Tashkent?
No, we don't have the branch.
So you have to bring it from like other countries.
No, you can just like buy the PDF version of it.
PDF, you mean?
Yeah, PDF version of it.
I hate PDFs.
No, I really love PDFs because you know that when I'm reading the book, sometimes I struggle with understanding the concepts which are being explained. I'm just like putting up to some, like to the GPT, or asking for for breaking up to the simple points, or making it like easier to understand depending on the level of your expertise in that specific field.
Can you send the links to those books?
So of course I can send you links.
We're going to put it in the description below, so that our subscribers can go and check it out. And I'm so hyped about those books. I love reading those technical books, and I believe it's going to be beneficial for our viewers too. So I wanted to thank you for your time. I really enjoyed today's talk, and I hope to see you again in our future episodes.
The same for you. Like, I really get a good time for talking with you and chilling out in here.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you too.
Yeah, thank you.